Madam President, I rise today to discuss my opposition to the resolution before us, a resolution disapproving of the National Mediation Board's ruling on election procedures. This ruling finally brings union election rules in the rail and aviation industries in line with union elections in every other industry. It also brings them in line with every other democratic election for public office at the federal, state, and local levels. Today, after the NMB rule change, a union election and an airline will be just like any other election. Employees who are the voters will have the opportunity to access a ballot. If they want union representation, they will vote yes. If they don't want union representation, they will vote no. If they don't have a strong opinion or if they forget to vote, well, then they don't count. Election officials count up the cast ballots, and the category with the most votes wins. Does anything about that description raise any flags? Probably not, because that's how elections work in this country. Prior to the NMB rule change, an airline union election worked very differently. Election officials counted people who didn't vote as no votes. Imagine if Senate elections worked that way for us. If to elect a United States senator, 50% of the eligible voters in a state had to vote for a candidate. Well, in the 2000 elections, when every single state except for my home state of Minnesota had less than 60% turnout, what would have happened? Well, let's just say that, for the sake of it, that all the races had as high a turnout as Minnesota, which 60%. They didn't, but let's say. In order to capture 50% of the entire electorate, a candidate would have to get 84% of the votes cast. If no senator captured 84% under the old NMB rules, those states just wouldn't get a senator. There'd be no one here, or almost no one. It'd be a lonely place. Thankfully, that's not how Senate elections work, and thankfully, airline union elections won't work like that going forward. But that is how they worked in the past. In a 2008 Delta flight attendant election, the outcome was 5,306 in favor of union representation out of 5,375. That sounds like a pretty stunning victory in favor of the union, right? Wrong. The National Mediation Board was forced to compute the tally by counting non-voters as no votes. Thus, it ended up with 5,306 votes in favor of the union and 8,074 votes not in favor. So the vote failed, even though less than 1% of the votes counting against the union represented actual cast ballots. I should admit that I have a special concern in this debate. My home state is home to thousands of Delta employees. Prior to the merger, they were Northwest employees, and most were unionized. Now they are facing a scary prospect, losing union representation after enjoying its benefits for decades. Union representation has provided them with living wages, retirement security, and health benefits. Compare this to a flight attendant for a different airline who revealed that she was eligible for food stamps despite working full-time. In professions in which full-time workers get food stamps, union representation is even more vital. The NMB rule change will give Delta workers a meaningful choice, the same meaningful choice that voters have in every other democratic election in this country. The claim that this rule change is unfair or undemocratic is simply not true. This change will bring real democracy to elections in the airline and rail industries. I think we can all agree that democracy has served our country well. I think we can agree on that. And I urge my colleagues to vote against this resolution. Thank you, and I yield the floor.